Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier, and thank you for stopping by. I do appreciate it. We took our Mindspeak caravan to Dar es Salaam over the weekend to host the January Man, January Makamba, and we've got a few snippets. The whole presentation by January, my introduction, is the first link on Rich Wrap-Ups. I'll put up a photograph of him as we waited to go into the hall. And then we've got about 3 teasers. One is where he says presidents don't come from the moon, talking about the fact that people like to aim for the presidency without announcing it, and he was announcing that. And then a couple of snippets in Kiswahili, and do listen to those as well. They're around 2 minutes each, and extremely interesting. And I'll also put up a photograph I took of the Dar es Salaam night sky, night shot from the 8th floor at the Hyatt. Macro thoughts: the fate of the world's currencies hang in the linguistic balance. And it's all about whether the Fed chooses to remove the word patient, and I'm sure they will. I'll put up a photograph I took of the Department of the Treasury in Washington 1,080 days ago, when they were printing all the money. Of course, they're not printing it anymore, and that's in part the reason why the dollar's rallying so sharply, because everyone else is printing even more. Paul Virilio, and I'm so pleased because I actually discovered him via a chap called Pepe Escobar, who writes in the Asia Times, and then I read him on the internet, but it was all snippets, and I've gone and ordered 5 books and they've turned up. The speed of light does not merely transform the world, it becomes the world. Globalization is the speed of light, Paul Virilio. And then I always like this quotation: images contaminate us like viruses, and I thought it was particularly apt given the activities of the beheaders. This is this photograph of the sunset I took yesterday at 6:29 p.m. Just in the office car park. Political reflections: Putin's first public appearance amid 10 days of hysteria. I'll put up a photograph of him. Vladimir Putin says he was ready to put Russia's nuclear forces on alert last year regarding Crimea. And apparently he's started a nationwide show of force. More than 45,000 Russian troops, as well as warplanes and submarines, started military exercises across much of the country on Monday in one of the Kremlin's biggest shows of force since its ties with the West plunged to Cold War lows. President Putin called the Navy's Northern Fleet to full combat readiness in exercises in Russia's Arctic North, apparently aimed at dwarfing military drills in neighbouring Norway, a NATO member. New challenges and threats to military security require the armed forces to further boost their military capabilities. Special attention must be paid to newly created strategic formations in the north, Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, quoted by RIA news agency. So it remains, whatever you want to characterize it, ambiguous warfare or any other characterization you care to give it, remains problematic. Saudi Arabia has reassured its allies and partners, led by the US, that Riyadh is committed to maintaining a trajectory of stability. However, in today's rapidly changing Middle East, these qualities no longer carry the weight that they once did. The scale of Saudi Arabia's domestic problems requires tangible and genuine reforms, not the preservation of a flawed status quo. It's true. MK Badrakumar speculating that it is entirely conceivable that one of the highlights of Barack Obama's presidency could be a visit to Iran. Indeed, I think it will. Mideast's balance of power tips towards Iran is an article in Bloomberg View. Difficult that it may be to believe Iran presents more important challenges than whether a nuclear deal negotiated with the regime in the teeth of congressional opposition would be legally binding. Nuclear weapons are scary and they do matter, but in the long run, geopolitical reality matters more. That's why this report, which arrived over the weekend from the Dubai-based Orient Advisory Group, should be disturbing. Ali Yunusi, advisor to Iranian Supreme Leader Khamenei, said in a seminar titled The Iranian Identity, held in Tehran on March the 8th, that his country is in Iraq to stay. Iran is an empire once again at last, and its capital is Baghdad. It is the center of our civilization, culture, and identity, as it always was along the course of history. I can't verify the accuracy of this transcript. Now let's add in last month's comments from General Qasem Soleimani, leader of the Quds force, currently aiding, some would say directing, the ground campaign into Crete. Today we see signs of the Islamic Revolution being exported throughout the region, from Bahrain to Iraq and from Syria to Yemen and North Africa. Headier stuff still, Tehran makes no secret of its ambitions and seems to face no significant opposition in the drive to achieve them. Certainly the US, formerly the dominant regional power, seems to be standing aside as Iran advances. Perhaps this is what the negotiations over Iran's nuclear program are really about. The Obama administration has decided to yield to what it sees as inevitable, Iran's emerging status as the dominant power in the Middle East. If that's what's going on, the President of the United States should say so. In point of fact, it was President Bush who opened it up for Iran, because previously Iran and Iraq were very balanced. It was horrific, of course, that Iran-Iraq war where millions died and just went to their death as martyrs. But the point was there was a balance. And then once the US in Iraq toppled Saddam, that was the opening for Iran. ISIS vows to blow up the White House, Big Ben and the Eiffel Tower for good measure, according to CBS. Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe says the West is the cause of many of Africa's problems, urging the continent to build resistance against them. Speaking during an interview with a Japanese TV station, said the West wanted regime change in several African countries, including Zimbabwe. They want things done their own way. They want regime change in Zimbabwe. They want me to go, and not my people, Mugabe was quoted as saying. International markets' expectations have been rising that the Fed will drop the word patient from its dialogue, from its statement on the timing of interest rate increases, which has fanned expectations for tightening as early as June and helped prompt the dollar's recent surge. The euro has actually bounced now to 105.92. When I walked in, it was at 150.61. And of course, it's rebounding from 104.57, which was the lowest since 2003. Dollar index just below 100. Japanese yen 121.27. I think it's in a corrective phase ahead of a move to about 125. Swiss franc 170. The pound 148.37. Aussie 0.7623. India rupee 62.836. South Korean 111.3181. Rial 325.30. Egyptian pound 762.43 and the rand 1240.87. Dollar index, I'll put up a 3-month chart, but I think in the long, we're in a multi-year rally here, and I think we're going back to pre-Plaza Accord levels, 1985. And I've written about this continuously. A small window for sharks as the dollar rises. I still think the Fed is just one headline economic print away from raising interest rates. You'll get a very big number, and they'll be forced to act. Euro dollar, my target is 0.93, notwithstanding a little bit of a bounce. We've been bouncing around just between 105.50 and 106. I think we'll turn lower again imminently. Euro dollar 0.93 is my target. Oil took another big tumble. Price of a barrel dropped more than 4% to a 6-year low. Traded below $43 a barrel. It's going below 40. Basically storage is full. People are not reducing supply, they're increasing it to try and make up the difference. Gold, I'm bearish about gold. Last trading at around 1155.85. I think we're going below 1150. Once we break there, we'll break quite sharply lower. Brazilian real, I'll put up a 1-year chart. It's around 325. I think it's toast and it's going to fall. I like this from Bloomberg: a pool and residence fronting a Fijian private beach, Laukala Island in Fiji. New Yorker has an interesting photo booth of life in Crimea. Lots of incredible photographs. Sub-Saharan Africa, Africa's CEO Forum tweeted, a new economic paradigm is going to transform Africa in the next 20 years. This is a fellow called Jeremy Rifkin. Today African companies need to move on a mobile basis in order to move forward, same chap. South African all share up 5.46% year to date, 2.26% below a record closing high reached on the 6th of March. Dollar Rand, I'll put up a 6-month chart. I'm unsure about where it goes now. We've got to 12, which was my objective. Muslim Brotherhood leader Mohammed Badi has been sentenced to death in Egypt, and continuing to take a very sort of hard line against the Muslim Brotherhood. Egyptian pound recovered all that good news that came out of that recent investment conference supporting it as well. Egyptian stock market up 6.79% year to date. The Nigerian Election Agency says it's ready for a credible vote. Nigeria's Independent National Electoral Commission is set to hold credible elections starting March 28 after delaying the ballots by 6 weeks, its chairman said. We believe we have done everything humanly possible to be able to conduct elections that are free, fair, credible and peaceful, Jega told reporters on Monday in the capital Abuja. We are adequately prepared. Out of 68.8 million people on the electoral register, 56 million, or 81%, have collected voter cards from 67.8 million printed for national distribution, he said. At the last count, this is my conclusion, it was tied at 42% each, and that signals extreme contestation. Nigerian all share fell 2.57% yesterday, biggest drop in over a month. It's down 12.48% year to date, and I think we're going to see another sharp fall in Nigerian asset prices because of the oil price. Ghana Stock Exchange is on the mend. It's still down 3.09% year to date, but the IMF program is leading to more optimism. It slashed its 2015 oil revenue forecast to 1.5 billion cedis from 4.2 billion cedis. But its finance minister says its economy will soar again, he told William Wallace of the FT. Will be stabilized by an IMF program and rebound within 3 years to the soaring growth rates that saw it lead African frontier markets at the start of the decade, according to the country's finance minister. Seth Terkper, who was speaking on a return journey from Washington when he was finalizing details of a $1 billion IMF bailout agreement, said new oil production could arrive in 2016 and that an end was in sight to power shortages as gas supplies came on stream. A London-based financial analyst who has followed the West African countries' escalating financial difficulties said there is little room to get it wrong. Africa sets its sights beyond commodities, but the interesting thing was this: of Africa's 54 countries, 24 rely on a select few mineral products to generate more than 75% of their export earnings, according to a study by the African Development Bank. Global demand for tea is forecast to expand 5.8% per annum between 2015 and 2019. China, Japan, Morocco, Sri Lanka, and the United States are considered the highest potential markets in the coming years. But what I found interesting was this. Currently, green tea, unfermented, accounts for 43.2% of the global demand, while the remaining market share is divided between black tea, 29.8%, tea concentrates, extracts, and essences, 27%. It's very interesting. Standard Group reported full-year earnings yesterday. Revenue was down slightly at 4.782 billion. Profit before tax up to 326.083 million. Full-year earnings per share up at 2 shillings and 57 cents. Full-year dividend was unchanged. They said print expanded at 8%, television 6%, radio advertising plus 66%. But bear in mind the digital fracas only kicked in after the reporting period, and that revenue has actually declined. Kenya shilling above 92, and that's really more. You've got to consider the fact that this dollar has been so strong. Nairobi all shares up 5.44% year to date, but has corrected 3.2955% since closing at a record on the 25th of February. The NSE 20 up 4.56%, but has corrected 157 points since closing at a 7-year high, March the 2nd. Knight Frank's wealth report notes that Nairobi should see the opening of around 1.8 million square feet of first world shopping malls, with new international retailers committing to the region for the first time. This is largely being driven by a burgeoning middle class hungry for Western-style goods, and shopping experiences by and large seem impervious to political controversies and terrorism activities. Interesting point. The ODM candidate in the Kajiado Central by-election was Monday night declared the winner of the tightly contested poll. That certainly was unexpected, I think. Pan Africa Insurance announced that their acquisition of Gateway Insurance Company has now gone through. That is also linked on Rich Wrap-Ups if you care to check into that. Once again, thank you for stopping by. I do appreciate it.